Welcome to Wild and Exposed, your number one adventure, nature, and outdoor photography podcast. Wild and Exposed is hosted by Mike Amaro, Ron Hayes, Jason Loftus, and Mark Raycroft. Thanks for tuning in.
Welcome to another episode of Wild and Exposed podcast. Myself, Ron Hayes, coming to you from Wyoming, and Jason Loftus coming to us from Utah. And our guest this week, Chris Hood, coming to us from a very happy Wisconsin right now, right?
Yeah, buddy. Bucks and six.
So we had to postpone the podcast for one night. So you'll be hearing this a week or so after it was recorded. But we had to postpone the podcast because Chris had a chance to go to Game 6 of the finals and watch the Bucks clinch it at home.
Yeah, it was a pretty incredible atmosphere. Pretty awesome to be at. Absolutely blast of a night, for sure.
So when we get done, we'll give you Chris's Instagram feed. Make sure you go to the feed and check out the celebration that he posted on his Instagram feed. It was quite the mass of humanity, all in a good mood.
Oh yeah.
So Jason, what have you been up to the last couple of weeks? I know where you're going.
Right.
What have you been up to?
I actually snuck over to the Colorado and did some velvet elk stuff, which was kind of fun. Had a couple of target bulls I was looking for, but didn't connect on them. But still had a really good time. Had some good high country elk stuff. And then just been getting ready for my trip to Alaska. So leave here by the time this comes out, I leave here in just a few days. So looking forward to that big time. It's a bucket list trip of mine. Go up there and spend some time with the bears. So
nice. Where are you going?
I'm going to go to Kodiak. And then do some day trips over to Katmai and, photograph the local bears in Kodiak there and then do some Brooks Falls and Katmai stuff. So should be fun. Yeah, I know you just got back from over that way too, didn't you? Not too long ago, Chris?
Yep. I went up fishing for a few days and went over to Brooks for about just shy of a week. So,
oh, nice.
And I was there a little early. The fish really hadn't started running yet, but I just got an email actually today or something that said that they've surpassed the 2018 run in Bristol Bay. So they're already over like 64 million fish now. So wow. They're definitely there now, and I imagine they'll be running all summer, rest of the summer. So
right.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. We just had a couple conversations with folks said it's like slam and run this year. So that's perfect.
Once in a while I hit it right.
Yeah, I wish we would have went a little bit later, but I went with a group that had secured a cabin at Brooks, and they chose the last 4 dates of June, because if you pick dates in July, you only get 3 nights as opposed to 4 nights if you do it in June. So they picked the last 4 nights of June, and typically I've been there twice before and it's been good then. But this year it was just the water's been a ton of rain up there. Snowpack was big and water's high and cold. So it's just taking a while for the water to warm up in the rivers and stuff and for the fish to start swimming.
So Chris, let's kind of take a step back and Jason and I were both on a trip with you this winter. And that's when we kind of hatched the idea for having you on as a guest on the podcast. But just for the group, or for the listeners, let us know where you got your start. How did you get your start in photography? Because it wasn't always wildlife, right? You said a landscape guy initially, right?
Well, I mean, wildlife has always been a passion. I mean, go back to, being a kid, growing up, and my dad would bring home and put a bag of corn outside of our, window in our basement, and we'd have deer in the backyard, and you watch them, all night long and stuff. And became, kind of immersed in, in love with wildlife. Just kind of started with that. And then, you get the National Geographic magazines and all that kind of stuff, and you page through those and you see the incredible photos and all that kind of stuff. So I've always had an affinity for wildlife, but kind of from the photography side of things, landscapes definitely was really where I started, mostly because the big wildlife lens is pretty expensive. So it took some time to save up to be able to buy those, which, once I did, obviously it changed the focus a little bit, but it's also, I feel like I shoot a lot of wildlife, I think, based on more of that landscape background, that's more of a naturescape or just more of a all encompassing shot, in combination of wildlife and the landscape, not just, the wildlife, fill the frame subject type shot. So,
And I think we saw some of that when you were, when we were up in Yellowstone. Everybody had long lenses on. You were throwing a wide angle on just as much as you had a long lens on.
Yeah, shooting the 1 to 4 or 2 to 6 quite a bit to get those wider shots. Because I've done the wildlife stuff now for, I don't know, now we're pushing probably close to 8-9 years, and you just end up with a lot of the similar shots. Just different, maybe a little bit different subject here and there. But once you start backing out a little bit, you can kind of create some, more diverse type of images and stuff. And, I don't know, that's just for me. I just kind of like that look more these days. So, I'm grabbing more, even when I go for a long lens, I'm grabbing the 400 instead of the 600, trying to get that. Obviously there's certain situations where you still need a 6 or whatever, just because you can't get close enough or whatever it may be. But that's, a different battle in itself. So.
Mm-hmm. Now you are fairly similar to Mike. You kind of have the ability to go mobile when you want to. You've got your living space in a van, correct?
I did actually. I just sold it this spring.
You did?
I did. Yeah, it was. I've had that van for about 6 years. Put 100,000 miles on it, and it was my mobile base station, my office on the road. And it worked. I loved it. It kept me closer to where I needed to be. Allowed me to stay more days out in the field, obviously at way less expense, having to do hotels and whatnot, and way more comfortable than doing campgrounds, especially in the winter months. But with the market the way it is, and I was actually able to turn a profit on the vehicle after owning it for 6 years and 100,000 miles. So I kind of had to let it go, and it's time to do something else. So we're in the process of building out a new setup. It'll be a little bit different. I won't be able to go from the driver's seat, walk to the back to go to bed, but at the same time, it'll be pretty much all encompassing and still be quite as mobile too. So
awesome. Can't wait to see it. Now you recently made some equipment changes also.
Yeah. So I've been, since I started getting back into the photography business, deal from, I think, I really started getting into it hard in like 2009 ish, 2008, 2009. And I'd shot Nikon, pretty much all the way through. It was just what I've always shot, and always was really happy with the results, whether, be the image, the sensor, or the glass. I always felt like they both complemented each other really well and always had great results. And then Sony came out with their, mirrorless setups, and I ended up getting a A7R, the first one that came out with just a couple small primes, like a 55 and I think I had like a 25 maybe, or maybe it was a 25, just, some light, but the main reason was because it was so small and so light. So when I would take it in the backcountry and, on longer backpacking type trips, it really helped cut the weight and space in the bag. So I kind of ran that setup, since the beginning. Nikon was still obviously my go-to and my workhorse and everything I did, especially when you go to the wildlife side, because I had the long glass for it. But after, I don't know, couple different trips and having a few issues with the Nikon stuff, and really the main trip that really made me start thinking about switching was a trip to Africa in February of 2019. I was over there and was trying to shoot, getting creative with shots and that kind of stuff. And I was just super limited with the autofocus on the D850 in live view, and then as well with the Z7. I had both those over there with me, and it was not allowing me to get shots the way I was trying to get shots, and it cost me, a few different good shot opportunities on shots that I didn't get. And so I came back immediately, and I didn't own any long lenses for Sony yet, but I randomly bumped into a local photographer in town at a high school basketball game, and he was shooting the Sony 400, and I really didn't know him beforehand. And as soon as I bumped into him and I saw the 400, I immediately went up to him and started chatting with him and became friends. And I asked him if I could, if I let me borrow it and try and see, if I could recreate the kind of shots I was trying to shoot in Africa, but with like my dog. And I picked his stuff up, and, he let me borrow it for a couple of days, and, was able to go recreate the same kind of shots, and the Sony nailed it every last one of them. And so that was what really made me start kicking the tires on it. The autofocus, especially on like the A9 II, was just out of this world. I think that had just come out about then, that same time frame. And, it was sacrificing on the megapixel side of things, but, from the speed and everything else, you're just getting way more, keepers than you are not. So, sometimes that sacrifice on the megapixels is worth it. So I really started kicking tires, on it. And then I guess it was right before COVID. It was the winter. It was the winter. So I was testing. Steve had just gotten the 600 in the Sony. So that was like kind of when once they came out with the 600. That was when I was like, all right, now they've got the long glass that really matches up with what I've got for Nikon. It's time to start thinking about it. And Steve bought one, so he let me borrow his gear again. And I went and shot it side by side, on just, waterfowl or just whatever stuff I could find at the time just to test. And, the D850 with the 600, and then the A7R4 with the 600, and then the A9 II with the 600. And I'd throw all those images into Lightroom, and I put them up side by side, and apples for apples. I couldn't tell you which image was which. There's times where I shot the Sony stuff and I kind of, thought it was, a little bit less of an image, than the Nikon stuff. But, I guess I was just so used to how good the Nikon is when it was really good. And the Sony, probably wasn't getting the same kind of light, same kind of conditions. So I went and tested it all side by side. And when I couldn't figure out which image was which, I knew enough to say, all right, so that's not a reason to have to limit my choice here. So now let's think about what other reasons do I want to make the switch. And I took all the gear down to our office and put it on a scale. The Nikon D850 with the grip to get the extra frames per second plus the lens was like 12 pounds. You put the Sony, the A9 II with the 600 on the thing, and it was like 8 pounds. So you're talking 30% savings in weight, which when you start doing a lot of traveling with your gear, especially internationally, when you're going on these small planes and they have, weight limits of like 23 pounds for your carry-on, on some of these international flights, more so, not so much in the U.S. because the U.S. is pretty lenient. But once you get to the smaller regional airlines, you start to have issues with your bag weight and all that kind of stuff. But definitely, New Zealand, Africa, all that stuff. The weight savings was huge. So it allows me to take more gear or just travel lighter and more comfortably. And then the third and final reason was the autofocus on the A9 II and the frame rate. Those two things were just, you couldn't compete with them. So I made the switch and then shot with that equipment all last year. And then obviously Sony announced the A9 or the A1 here, and I guess must have announced it maybe end of January. I think I finally got it right after our trip, which is a little unfortunate because I didn't get to put it through the paces that I wanted to, on the wildlife side right away. But I just got back from Alaska with it for a week up there shooting, bears and stuff and some fast stuff. And I can't be more than impressed with that camera and incredibly happy. I switched to Sony and I'm shooting that camera.
Yeah, I think your images from that trip, you've posted, I don't know, 7 or 8, something like that, photos. And they're incredible, man. Great work, but you could see, I don't know if it makes sense, but you can see a difference, I think. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. It's just fun to shoot. I mean, it's just the ability for that lens to just grab focus and hold focus and be able to track, obviously, shooting. I mean, I was shooting a D850 before. Jason and he shot the D850 for a while. It's it's not geared towards a wildlife sports camera, but it did damn well with the autofocus. But it obviously there was times where it would fail and it wouldn't keep up, and especially on the instances where the animals are moving directly towards you. It's a shot that's tough for autofocus systems to keep up. But that A1 is just incredible. I mean, I think it's something like 60 calculations per second on the autofocus. And it's it's just insane.
I think the A9 II was 60, right? And then the A1 was faster yet. It was like almost double.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think you're right. I think 60 is what it was, and I think it is double. So it's crazy fast, and it's you can shoot 30 frames a second, but I didn't. You have to change a few settings to do that, and you have to shoot compressed. I think it's their lowest setting on it, and your image is a little bit degraded. Not a ton, but it's just enough that I'd rather not have a degraded image and rather get the extra 10 frames a second, then get the extra 10 frames a second. So yeah, I just been sticking with the 20 frames. So
yeah, if you wanted 30, just shoot video.
Right. Exactly.
So, and Jason commented about the autofocus on the Sony system that he had also, but then everybody that I talked to that shot the A9 II, they said it was almost like cheating. I mean, with the autofocus system, tracking birds in flight and that kind of thing, it was easy.
Yeah, so it's amazing.
What made you jump to the A1 from the A9 II if it was that good?
Well, mostly because it was the 3 cameras I had in one. So I was shooting the A7R4 and the A9 II, right? I wanted to have the resolution when I needed the resolution. Whether it be landscape or whether it be, wildlife, but, needed some crop or whatever it may be. But if there was something I really knew I needed the autofocus for, I would grab the A9 II, or if it was, I had a lot of client work where it's fast moving, candid stuff, stuff that's just on the fly and you're not having control of clients or the people that you're shooting. To be able to nail more shots with that system was kind of where I used that a lot. Plus the images were smaller, so I wasn't racking up the terabytes of data I was if I was shooting just the A7R4 on those types of shoots. So I was shooting both of those, and then obviously the A7S A3 came out, and from a video standpoint, that was, be able to do, 4K 120 frames a second, which is, incredible, so I kind of picked one of those up, and because I do a fair amount of video throughout the year that clients will use in marketing materials, commercials or launch videos for products or whatever it may be. So yeah, I was basically having all three cameras with me, and then the A1 came out, and it basically did everything that all three of those cameras does, kind of in one camera. So I can trim my bag down from three cameras to one, or in my case, I'm shooting two. I've got a backup, right? A second camera. So I'm shooting two A1s, but it's, slim my bag down from three cameras to one. And now when I'm shooting two cameras, I'm getting the exact same results with both cameras as well. So
what is the resolution of the A1?
I think it's 51, I think.
Is it?
I think.
So that's smaller than the A7S or
A7R4.
A7R4.
Yeah, which is like 62, I think.
Yeah, but
yeah,
still,
it's a little bit smaller, but it's the A9 II was only 20.2 or 24 or something like that.
So it's double the resolution of that system.
Exactly. Yeah, and the dynamic range and everything, all the stuff. I mean, it's a badass camera. I mean, I'm thoroughly impressed with it. And Sony's so good at listening to their photographers, and I've emailed in to the Sony rep I work with, I don't know, 4 or 5 different times on different things, and every time he comes back, it's like, you can do that. It's, this setting, and go into this menu, it's there, or if it's this button on that lens, or it's, but they're really good at listening, and he's always encouraging me. He's like, if there other things that you come up with, or you'd like to see, like, email over. Like one of them, and specifically one of them was like, when we're in Africa, right? You can't get out of your vehicles. You're stuck shooting from the vehicle. And a lot of times you're shooting on a beanbag from the window rest, or they, out, on the edge of the car, they've got, bars or whatever. And, you got a beanbag you're shooting on. Well, typically where you lay your lens on that beanbag is usually right on the focus wheel, and as soon as you start moving left or right on that, as you're tracking an animal or whatever, that starts to move that focus ring. So you can miss shots based on that. And I emailed the Sony rep. I'm like, hey, this is one thing I know it's probably not a, super common issue, but it was an issue for me and a couple of guys when we were in Africa, that we were missing a few shots here and there because as we're tracking animals left and right, the focus is moving on us. And he's like, oh, we've got a button on the 600 and the 400 that turns that off, that turns the focus ring off, so you don't have to deal with that. And I'm like, oh, so you guys have already done that. So cool. So, I mean, just things like that. They're constantly thinking about things and how they can make it, make it better, make it easier for the shooter. I mean, all the custom buttons, the program things. I mean, I run, 2 different focus setups on my camera with both back button, right? Your AF on and your AEL buttons are both 2 different focuses. One's 3D tracking, one spot focus. Obviously with eye detect on the 3D tracking, and when it grabs on, and it's super sticky, and like, it's amazing what it can do, tracking a critter, bear walking through grass, and it stays on the eyes and doesn't jump to the grass or any of that kind of stuff. And it's incredible how good it is.
That's what I was going to ask you. The bears, with that low contrast difference between the eye and the fur, how it did with those, because that's one of the places that the R5 does struggle.
Yeah, it did really, really well. I was impressed because there's not, that's not a ton of different in contrast, right? The black, dark eye to the brown fur, or it did incredibly well. I was impressed, and the other thing is, like, I'm able to get shots now with this setup, that I really wasn't able to get before. Like, in the way that I mean is, I've got some programmed buttons, like either on the lens or on on the camera itself where I can just push one button and I can all of a sudden go into settings and I'm shooting like slow shutter for like motion blur type shots. And then I can let go of that button and I'm right back to shooting fast action, freezing water, action at 1/2000th of a second. And I can do that with just pushing one button. So I'm able to shoot the fast scene, quickly grab a motion blur, let go of it, and go right back to shooting all the fast action stuff. So those are shots I wouldn't have been able to get. I got to pick one or the other before, when I was shooting with Nikon, and just I couldn't get both those in the same setting. And it's pretty incredible because, if you ever tried motion blur on wildlife or whatever, it takes it takes 30 seconds to switch your camera settings over, and just that process you're going to miss that sequence of shots, but then you get to your, where the action is, and then you shoot. And then if you want to go back to the other setting, you lose another 30 seconds of shooting, going back to what you were before. So, there's little things like that. I'm just thoroughly impressed, and extremely happy I made the switch. So
right after the trip that we all did together, and then, you got the A1s, you took a trip down to Patagonia, correct?
I was supposed to go down. I was supposed to be going to Guatemala. I had a bike accident and messed my elbow up, so I couldn't go. There was a Brazil trip in there as well that got canceled. COVID got bad down there.
Okay.
So I couldn't go on that. I've got a polar bears on the books for October, which is, it's been 2 years or 3 years out that I've been waiting to go on that one. And I just heard the other day that it sounds like Canada's going to open the border for vaccine Americans to come up starting in, I think, August. So fingers crossed that happens, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Where are you headed for polar bears? Churchill?
Churchill, yep.
Right on.
Yeah, we've got a group. Actually, a guy that I met in Africa is between me and him, we booked up the whole 8 spots, and he's got, I think, 6 of them, and I've got 2 of them. So I was able to get another person to go, and then I think he's taken 2 clients, but then I think his wife and his 2 daughters are going. So
awesome.
Yeah, so I'm excited because that's one of the few places that I know of that you can get out and walk around with polar bears. So
yeah,
yep.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Mike did a lot of that, and then he just said make sure that there's more than one person out at a time. Yeah. Otherwise, they get a little inquisitive.
Yeah. It sounds like you go out in a kind of a group, and there usually a guide with you or somebody with you, and they usually from the sound, what it sounds like is they usually have a sidearm on them, or some sort of whether it's rubber bullets or whatever it is. But
one thing I wanted to touch on, just because you got so many amazing images, and you've already talked about your time in Africa, but just the opportunity to go and photograph the big bulls. You even got to photograph that legend of a bull, Tim.
Oh, Tim. Yeah. When I went over to Africa, in 19, I went, just kind of last minute, there was a, cancellation on a group it was a group photograph tour deal. And, I had some cancellations, and so he offered the spots back up at a pretty good discount. And so I just jumped on it and said, why not? And so that was for big cats in Kenya in the Mara. And I was like, well, if I'm going to go there, Amboseli's, not too far away. And that's where Tim was, who was at the time like the, second or third largest, tusker in Africa. So I was like, it would be really cool to go try and find him. So I went over there for, I think, 4 days. And we spent 2 days trying to find him. And we did one of the 2 days we did find him. So I got to spend, a couple hours in the morning with him, shooting him. So
yeah. And let's just say when you go through Chris's feed, you'll know exactly which bull we're talking about. There's no mistake. And he's just an incredible animal.
Yeah, he was huge. He was cool. He was cool just to be able to see. And then, the light one could have been a little bit better, but it is what it is. You take what you get. Just to have that experience and see an elephant like that with tuskers that are that big. I mean, I think they said one was like 130 pounds or something like that. Like, it's just insane how big those things were.
Yeah, he's a giant bull, impressive animal, and obviously to get old enough to be that way, that's impressive as well, that they've been able to take care of him with everything that goes on over there.
Yeah. So, and actually heading back to Africa here in like 3 weeks, just to the Mara again. Actually going to go with Drew, who we did some of the winter wildlife stuff in Yellowstone. He'll be over there for some personal stuff down in South Africa, and then he's never been to the Mara, and he wants to check that out. Possibly put together some wildlife tours or whatever in the future over there. So we're going to go over and check out some camps and all that kind of stuff. So,
Well, I hope he doesn't leave us out of that conversation when you guys get it set up.
Right.
It's funny. I was just going to ask you that very thing. I mean, it's funny to me. I mean, I'll mention something like I want to go to Alaska and shoot the bears, and some folks are like, "Well, it's been done a million times." There's a million bear photos of Alaskan bears. Everybody's done it, and it's like, well, yeah. So I really think it depends on why you're going. You know what I mean? For me, a lot of the trips I have in my mind, the bucket list trips I have, they're a lot about the experience. I mean, yeah, photos are cool, and I want to get photos, but then I have images that I want to get in mind. But I'm really going for the experience, right?
Yeah.
And I think Africa's a lot that way for people. I know there's folks that don't want anything to do with Africa, and it's high on my list, wanting to get over there and do some stuff too. But I was going to ask you, I mean, you're going back again, so obviously you had a good time. Obviously, it sounds like it's something that you probably will start making a regular deal.
Well, going back to, like I said, my younger days, flipping through the pages of Nat Geo, right? My first love was always big cats, just the cheetahs and the lions and leopards and just big cats. And so that trip I did, that previous one I did in that February of 19 was specifically for big cats. And you get over there and, I've been to Africa a couple times, before, and, I've been to South Africa, and, I get to South Africa, and it wasn't exactly what I had in my mind of what Africa looked like and what I expected. And it was a lot more brushy and, and just a lot greener. We were kind of, I guess, rainy season a little bit. But it wasn't what I expected. And then when I went to the Mara, I was like, okay, now this is what I expected Africa to look like. This is big open plains, just what you expected. Right. So, from that standpoint, like the whole setting is right. And then to be able to, we're going to go back, and the time we're going is going to be really good for the Great Migration, which if you've ever seen photos of that, it can be pretty incredible. So that's, we're going to go during that time frame, and hopefully we can, witness a giant river crossing, and, the wildebeest and zebras just going crazy and all that kind of stuff, and capture some of that chaos and whatnot. And then obviously with that, there's a lot of animals that lions and leopards will have a chance to have kills, and, maybe get some of the blood and the gore and that kind of stuff too, which unfortunately I didn't get on my big cat trip the last time. So yeah, just a chance to go back and do it again for the week. I kind of said last time, when I go again, I really like to spend, at least 2 weeks there, just because you kind of need that extra time. But unfortunately, just the way schedules work with Drew and then with me and with my work stuff, we can only do a week. So hopefully we'll just get lucky. I know guys who've gone, over there 9-10 times to try and hit river crossings, and they have yet to witness a good one. So
that's wildlife.
Yeah, that is wildlife.
You can go with all the hopes in the world, and you can time it and try and do everything right and whatnot. And it's, sometimes they just don't, they got something else in their mind that day or that week or whatever, so.
That happened to me just last night.
Yeah. What were you doing last night?
A sure thing red fox den. these people, we've seen them every night for the last month. They're right behind the house, gave us the location, this rancher did, and went out there and nothing, but we got surrounded by cattle and just sat there listening to the cattle biller. So it kind of, fortunately not fortunately, but there's some wildfires going on. It's wildfire season out here. And with the wildfires and the smoke, it provides that great filter for the sun as it starts to get a little bit lower on the horizon. So I was able to do some, salvage it with some time lapse video and of the sunset and that kind of thing, but no fox. And then we saw them on the way out. They had moved about 400 yards, but they were having a great time without us.
We're actually getting some of that same smoky haze over here in Wisconsin too. It's making it that far. It's this last, I guess, week or so, it's been, I don't know if that's been affecting the allergies, if it's just that time of year allergy wise, but yeah, it's definitely making it this far. And I've gone out looking for whitetails, velvet whitetails the last few nights. And again, I'm just, same thing, getting unlucky with them right now. They're hit or miss. We need some little cooler nights yet. There's hot, there's supposed to be a week of really hot weather right now. So probably won't move much till after dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ron, I'm not going to let that go real quick. Yeah. Isn't this like the second or third time you've had cow issues when you were trying to shoot this year?
Dude, they killed me during the grouse season. I've gotten more videos of cattle this year than just about any other species of animal, period.
Right. And then, so your domestic cattle portfolio is doing well, huh?
Yeah.
Are they these big longhorns, like cool bulls or
no? So yeah, I figured if it's going to be cattle, so we did go by a place that told us we could stop and photograph their longhorns, and they've got some good ones, but just waiting for that right weather day, Yeah. And then we got another rancher that wants us to come photograph. They've got the Scottish Highlander.
Okay. Yep.
Cattle. And
with
they're
the shaggy hair.
Small but shaggy hair. They're really photogenic, and these things are almost tame. Of course they're domestic. But we're kind of saving those on the back burner since I'm having such a good cattle year. I've got high hopes for when those opportunities come about.
There you go.
What Jason was talking about, I think, was I had a cow stick her nose in the blind with me. Got a nice video, and actually I had to flick her in the nose to keep her from snotting up my phone. I was videoing her with my cell phone.
Nice.
Just about had the same situation last night. But it was the maiden voyage for the C70. So I went with the Canon system, and the reason that I got the C70 was for some commercial work. And it had the built-in neutral density filters. It accepted the R-mount lenses, same as the R5. So I went that route and didn't have a chance to do much at all with it.
That's a video specific? Or is that focused on video?
It doesn't take stills. It's just video.
Okay.
And it's got a lot of things that are automatic, which is nice, and it takes a little bit of getting used to. It's automatic 180 shutter. So if you're shooting at 30 frames a second, the 180 shutter is you want your shutter speed at 1/60th. So it makes that adjustment automatically. It's got, just like you were talking about with being able to switch to the, so you get the pan blur shots or the motion blur shots. This is the same way. You can, at one button push, you're hitting a custom setting to be slow motion at 120 frames a second, and it makes all the calculations and adjustments for you as well. Nice. So it is a good tool for what it is. It's not the best video camera out there, but it's definitely a good tool for what I'm going to be using it for over the next year. And it was paid for by the company that I'm working for now. So
that always helps, right?
Yeah. It'll continue to pay for itself after that. So,
Jason, you made any changes on your gear setup? Or I know you're kind of dabbling in a little bit of everything, trying to figure it out.
Yeah. What's interesting is I've pretty much committed to the Canon route. It's interesting. I ordered my 600 Canon RF lens, which I haven't received yet. But and then right after I ordered that is when the A1 came out, right? But that A1 had really got me thinking hard about my decision, but I'm pretty comfortable with my decision at this point. I think it's this Ford Chevy Dodge debate. I think they'll take great images, and but yeah, I'm looking forward to the R3. I think that R3's not going to have the megapixels that the A1 has, but I think it'll be pretty comparable in a lot of other ways.
Yeah.
And then so I've still got my Nikon gear. I haven't sold it yet. I just can't bring myself to part with it. I don't know why. It's probably really dumb of me, but there's rumors going around now about the Z9 and more rumors about it. And I think Nikon's having to do that because if they don't put something out here soon, they're going to lose a lot more people in a hurry. But
they unfortunately, I think Nikon's just they slept way too long on the mirrorless stuff, and then I just still I went through this with Drew, right? Drew was shooting on Nikon, and I've been shooting Sony now, and I've been having a great time with it. And I kind of had to coach him through, and he's actually making the switch to Sony. But with the Nikon, you still say you get the Z9 coming out, there's still no long glass for it, so you still got to shoot adaptive glass, with an adapter, which is not going to be the same. Same speed, same advantage, and everything that you get with, a native lens, right? So you still got to buy, and then when that does come out, you got to, drop the cash to switch to, that. So, I don't know. I really did like Nikon. I love the glass. I love the images I got out of them. They just weren't keeping up with what was going on in the rest of the camera world. So,
well, your images haven't suffered making the switch. That's for sure.
Yeah.
No, that's a fact. You've put up some awesome stuff from that Alaska trip.
Yeah, I really haven't had time to go through much of it either. I've gotten back and been just overloaded with fall prep stuff. Get stuff done while I've got a 2-3 week window where I don't have any jobs that I've got to go do right now. So it's time for me to get all my whitetail stuff and all the stuff I got to get done before fall gets here, before I start getting back. And I got a couple, 2 work trips and that Africa trip in August. And then soon as September rolls around, we're full bore and everything again. So, and I just had another client reach out about doing a shoot next weekend. So trying to find out details on that. So calendars filling in too. So
that's a good problem to have.
Right.
Absolutely. Hey, I don't know, Ron, if you have another question that you were headed down.
I had one that we let him off the hook on, but go ahead.
Well, let's save that for a minute. I know it's when you're let's catch that last. But so just a couple things, Chris. I know recently you revised your whole approach on your website and kind of your approach with prints and so on and so forth. And I've personally been very impressed with the whole approach you took. And I love the one series you have, and you got a lot of great images on there, but you have a series on there called the Approached series, which I just think is so cool. And if everybody that's listening needs to just go check out Chris's website. It's chrishoodphotography.com, and check out that Approach series. It's just all and I don't mean this in a bad way, but all center punched, wide angle, animals walking towards you. And it's incredible. I love it. I think it's so cool that you had the foresight to think of that series, because you had to be thinking that way to put it together.
Yeah.
And I maybe just talk a little bit about your approach with that and your website and kind of the approach you're taking there.
Well, I mean, just as far as the shots go, it's always something, when I go out shooting, it's something that I look for, trying to find the animals walking towards me, and I try and obviously get it from a lower perspective, give them a little bit more, position of power, more scale, and then if a little bit wider angle to allow, more landscape involved with the shot. So it's always something I've just always tried to get. I can't say that I was actually looking for it for an actual series until probably, 2 years ago, when I start going back and looking through things and pulling things out, and I start looking at stuff. I was like, man, you've really done pretty good on this. Let's start focusing on this a little bit more and start, hitting some of these other species and different critters that I haven't gotten that same kind of look in. And, after obviously doing that, it's a lot easier to pick out those spots and try and nail those shots as well. So, and then just from the other side of things, the website, right? So, obviously I kind of I've taken an approach where I want to do limited quantity, on my prints. I want somebody to feel like they're getting something of value. And from an artist standpoint, by limited number, hopefully if I do my job right, from that side of the things that those, if I sell out some of those prints, those will go up in value. If somebody wants to try and buy that on a secondary art market down the road, that, somebody now has something of value that they can look to sell. So then they feel way more confident in purchasing another print from you down the road or whatever it may be, because they know it's not something that they're just throwing money away at. It's something that they can, it's a store of value and, possibly turn a profit on at some point. And I've chatted with a bunch of different, fine art guys. Jeff Mitchum was a key, a guy that I've become buddies with now, but my brother met him snowboarding in Alaska as a fine art landscape photographer out of Tahoe. His name's Abe Blair, and just chatting with both those guys and, the things that they see and that they, what they deem, fine art and exclusive, Jeff is big on saying anything over 300 quantity in a print is a poster run. Anything, he goes, keep your numbers low. You'll do better, long term. You'll have to, and it hopefully, what it will make, if you do start to sell out images, it will make you have to continue to work, right? Because you got to go out and continue to create new images that people will want, right? So it keeps you driving and working. And like my buddy Abe, he does his editions are only 25. And that's all he'll do is 25 in a print. And he's done some smaller runs, like one of ones, but he won't go over 25 in his prints.
I like that approach. I really do. I think it's there's a lot of different ways to approach things. So it's always interesting to me to see the thought process and why somebody would go that way, right? But I know guys that do really well doing the other way. They sell prints and they sell lots of prints and they do fairly well, but yeah.
I'm not knocking that way. I'm not discounting it. I just know kind of where and how I want to, have my art kind of seen. And I also, I'm kind of anal over how it's printed and how, what the medium it's on and how the finished product is going to look. So I kind of, I'm, working with, with what I feel is one of the better print labs in the country. And then, the finished product is, it's just not a cheap product to begin with, to get in the first place. So, but I think it will really make the images look their best. And I think the client will be the most happy with it, when they get it on their wall and actually, have it hang in their home.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can speak for the fact that I remember when you were going through that, I was watching your stories quite a bit, and you actually met with the print house, went through the entire process of making sure the prints were going to look exactly like you wanted. I'm sure you calibrated colors and printers and all that good stuff. And there's a lot of personal touch that went into that whole thing. So just for folks that are listening, they may not understand that just going to your website, but when you know what you went through to make sure that your clients are getting the best possible print they can, that makes a big difference.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it's worth a little extra time, a little bit extra cost, and getting all the test prints and going through that process and making sure everything does match what I'm seeing on my computer as to what is coming out from the printer, what the client's going to get. So making sure that color consistency is there. And getting that dialed in, and I still, once a year or whatever, I still go back and we recheck things. I'll send them a new print and see where it's at, see if anything's changed on their end, see if things changed on my end. But they then build a database of my images. So then when I send them an email, say, hey, somebody ordered this print in this size, this finish, they can just go reprint it, and everything should be dialed in perfect, ready to go. So.
Yeah, well, when you buy something from your website, you're definitely getting a piece of art. There's, I think they're very custom framed and they're numbered, like you said, in the whole. I mean, it's classy stuff. So, anyways, kudos to you, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks.
So what percentage of your work, Chris, is commercial versus your print sales?
Oh,
because people will ask.
No, it's I would say still, I don't know, 80% of my work is just the commercial advertising client stuff. Print sales have been doing better this year. Last year with COVID and whatnot, I think people, I relaunched the website kind of in that COVID time because I had the free time to finally get it, worked on and get it right and go through and actually spend the time pulling out images and all that stuff and working with the lab and all that kind of stuff. So, but this last year's been, 2021 or whatever has been pretty good so far from the print sales. And it's, it kind of comes from places where you don't really expect it, or sometimes, like I had that cover shot on that Strong magazine for their big game issue. This last, I guess, came out probably January, February, sometime frame. And, 2 months after the fact, somebody found my website and goes, I'm not sure if you're the same guy, but saw that image on the cover and I've got to have that for my house. It's like the epitome of elk hunting to me. And I need to have it. And if you're the same guy, I'd love to order it. I don't see it on your site. Can you, if you can add it, that'd be great. So I got back in touch with him and got it up there so he could get it ordered. And now it's hanging on his house on the wall in his house. So, but it just comes from, random places. Obviously, it's kind of a snowball effect. It takes time, for people to start seeing it and, to find you and to see what you are printing or the products and that kind of stuff and whatnot. And then hopefully down the road that will grow. And I'm still a proponent of, I think an actual physical gallery would be best. I just think people being able to walk in and to see the images on the wall does a lot more than trying to go to a website and trying to not exactly sure what you're getting from a product standpoint and that kind of stuff. So
Jason and I have this conversation all the time because Instagram, people use Instagram for their business portfolio. Yeah. But the same people are cropping images down to the size of a postage stamp. So you couldn't print it, probably couldn't even print a 4x6.
Right.
With, the crop that they have. So, and I know because I'm standing right next to them, I know the setup they were shooting with. And then I see the crop and it's like, holy smokes. That's about 3 pixels left on that bad boy.
Yeah. That actually, that cover shot, that elk shot, the printer was actually a little bit concerned about it being maybe a little pixelated because we printed, it was a 40x60. It was a big, nice print. 2/3 of the image was there, but they were a little concerned going that big. It was looking a little pixelated. So they sent me a full size print, just a test strip of it. And I got it and I thought it was fine. And they were, and I did a little bit of work, went back into Photoshop and resharpened it and did a few things in there to try and get a little bit more out of it. And end of the day, I think it turned out great. But yeah, exactly to your point, it's, if you're going to end up printing something big like that for, a fine art print, you need the resolution, and you can't have those cropped images. And
yeah, no, I think you're spot on, Chris. And it's funny that I think that's a real problem with Instagram, to be honest with you. And that's again, back to your idea of a gallery. People put a lot of photos on Instagram that you just know won't print well. You can tell even on Instagram sometimes. But but people that are buying prints should just be sorry. People that are buying prints should be wary of that.
Your dog agrees.
Yes, the dog agrees.
Just trying to chime in a little bit. Mine was too in the background. I'm not sure if you could hear it.
But yeah, I mean that's I think long term that would be the goal would be to have a physical space somewhere. And maybe not even long term. Like I was setting things in motion to make it happen last year, and then obviously COVID kind of had different plans for that. And I think it kind of led me to take a step back and let's take our time a little bit more. Let's build the portfolio a little bit more. Let's get, some things figured out first. And, we'll revisit that when the time is right in the future. So,
well, I don't think there's any doubt your portfolio is strong enough. I mean, we always, all of us probably feel that it could be deeper, it could be stronger, or whatever. But you've got some incredible images, and I think that the two genres that you kind of tie together to make those naturescapes, I think it works together perfectly. You've got a great eye for the landscape, and then when you have the opportunity to put the wildlife in that landscape, man, there's some really strong images there.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate it. I don't know. And for me, I just think it's, when I think about prints and I think about what people want to buy and put on their wall, I feel something that tells more of a story with it be the landscape and a critter, or, a lot of times people like landscapes because it takes them back to a place they visited, a trip or something like that. Or if you can put a critter in there in the landscape as well, it gives it that extra wow factor. I think there's definitely a place in a case for, your big, cool portrait wildlife shots. But I just think they have to be so badass, for somebody to want to put that on their wall that's going to sit there in their home for, 20, 30 years. So I think the more that we can tie the nature and the whole setting into it and really, really take somebody to a place and an experience, maybe they've had that experience sitting next to, Oxbow Bend and Tetons and a herd of elk goes across the river, or a bear, or, 399 and her cubs come walking by or something. It's something that they wish they saw when they made their trip there. But it takes them back to their family vacation there, or their trip there, and it helps a little bit more than just that portrait shot. Don't get me wrong, I think there's still a place for the portrait shots, but I focus a little bit more on the all encompassing, landscape incorporated to it. So
yeah, and it definitely is a style that you have, or that you've developed based on your past and your present. But I think it's a style that relates very well to exactly what you're talking about. That's the kind of images that people want. They want to be taken away when they look up on their wall.
Yep.
And that's the advantage of that style in particular. So one of the things that you're one of the more well-traveled guests that we have on. You've been to several different continents and had the opportunity to photograph wildlife all over the globe. So one of the questions that we typically ask, and this is the one that I was alluding to earlier, is what's your favorite ever outdoor experience?
Favorite ever outdoor experience. It really depends on like where you're going, what you're looking for. Alaska, where I just was, being in Alaska, walking around with brown bears, it's got to be up there at the top. It's just not every day that you can go walk around in the same river with brown bears and have them walk by. You're obviously supposed to stay at 50 yards away, but there are times where they come up from behind you, or there's multiple bears coming from different angles, and there's times where they get closer, and to be there in the river with them, witnessing them do their thing, and looking for salmon and chasing fish and fishing, and their interactions with the other bears, and obviously it's mating season as well, so they're starting to chase the women a little bit, and that kind of stuff, and just to be able to be on the ground and immerse with them, that's a pretty cool one. Africa with the big cats is up there as well with the wildlife side of things. There's obviously there's so many cool places in this world with cool things. I think Churchill with the polar bears in the fall will be one of those ones too, to be able to walk around with polar bears and hopefully, hopefully we get that opportunity, right? Hopefully the trip happens and hopefully the polar bears are there. I mean, obviously there's a lot of things that could, make it not be the case, but I think that'll be right up there with them too,
Have you ever been up there?
No, I have not. I have not been after polar bears at all, or Churchill or not. So
Yeah, that's definitely on the short list for me. And we just had a friend who just got a concession up there. So I think it's probably going to come into fruition in the next year at least. I don't think it'll be this fall, but probably be 2022 for sure.
Very cool. Yeah, this trip has been a 2-3 years in the works, so, and obviously with COVID and stuff, we weren't even sure it was going to happen. So
yeah, I can't wait to hear how your trip goes, man. I'll have to stay in touch with you and see if it's everything that you were hoping it was. Hopefully it is. So
yeah, I'm excited. I'm hoping that, obviously there's some peaks going up with COVID and around, different places with these other variants and stuff and whatnot. And, but it does seem like the world is opening back up a little bit more. And, so Africa, I think, is going to be a fun trip because I still think there's less people there than there ever has been, from a tourism standpoint. So it makes it a little bit better from that standpoint. And then obviously with hopefully the Canadian border opening up and having a chance to do that trip would be awesome.
Yeah. Africa's it's going to be a unique year there, because everybody that had concessions over there, if they couldn't pay for them without having any clients travel, they lost them. So they were still required to pay for the concession, required to pay for all the folks that they had working for them, even though they had no ability to travel or get clients in. So I think you're right. Some of those concessions that were lost are just closed, and so there is less people traveling right now.
Yeah.
Even though we're seeing record numbers in the U.S. As far as, Grand Teton National Park, Yellowstone National Park, it's just insane there.
Yeah, I try and stay away from those places between the two
Memorial and Labor Day.
Yep.
No can do, which is a bummer because the bison rut is pretty fun.
Yeah, I mean, it would be cool to do, get out there. I'd like to do, a summer trip out that way, some velvet, elk, whatever. Just last year, I was out there that way a little bit last year, and then this year there's too many people right now. So, when the world goes back to normal and everybody goes back to work and it dies down a little bit. Because Jason, you said you were riding Rocky not too long ago.
yeah, yep, absolutely.
Are they still doing the reservations and all that? And
They are doing reservations, and they're the main park is less restrictive, but the Moraine and Bear Lake area is more restrictive. So
yeah, they're like not letting people drive up that road, right?
1,500 passes a day is what they're allowing. Yep. So it's all timed entry, 5:00 in the morning till 6:00 at night. So yeah, it's pretty restrictive, but it's helping with numbers too, for sure. There's no question.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll have to reach out to you. I've got a couple days here and there, but September is really busy. So
yeah.
And then I'm going to try to get to Alaska after that.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Alaska. I'm going for sure now, end of August, 1st of October. That'll be fun. So
nice. You're going to go up again in October?
Yeah, just 1st of October, try to catch some moose rut. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, one of the guys that I was with at Brooks this last trip, we had plans to do all sorts of stuff. We were going to fly out to a couple different spots, and pilots just were not willing to get us to where we wanted to go, and it proved to be more difficult than we expected. But anyway, Sean's going back I want to say like the third week of September, like right before the Brooks Lodge closes, like for a couple of days, and then he's going to stay like a week after it closes and get the fall colors and all that from the fishing guys and everybody up there. The employees that are up there, they say September is absolutely gorgeous up there. So,
I'm pretty sure we'll catch some of that end of September, 1st of October. But yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hoping so.
Chris, anything else you'd like to add?
No, not too much, unless you guys got any more questions or
where can everybody find you?
You know, my Instagram is Chris J Hood. I've got a couple other ones that I used to do. I kind of focused everything back to just doing the one. It just got kind of be a little too much. I'm not super active on Instagram from a posting standpoint, more so on the stories. That side of things are kind of what's going on currently, but then I will share some of the work from the trips as well here and there. And then just my website, chrishoodphotography.com, is where you can see and purchase prints if anyone so chooses to. That's really the two places that I share most of my work. So
perfect. Well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
we really appreciate your time, and I'm glad you got to see the game and be there for all that. And the post celebration, we'll let you go rejoin that.
Yeah, right. I'm actually in recovery mode after that. I need some rest and some water and lots of sleep.
Yeah, rehydrate, rest up.
Yeah. It was fun though. It was a really fun night. So I appreciate you guys letting me postpone it and
no problem.
Enjoying that. So
absolutely.
For sure. And thank you all for listening to another episode of Wild and Exposed Podcast.
You've been listening to the Wild and Exposed Podcast. If you haven't yet, please give us a rating and a review. And make sure you're subscribed so that you'll get every episode we produce as soon as we drop it. And as always, thanks for tuning in.
We're gonna make it someday. Nothing's gonna get in our way. We will be the biggest band in town.